Max had always been a dreamer. Even as a child, he would lay on his back in the grass, staring up at the endless expanse of stars. One day, "I'm going to touch those stars," he'd say to his father, John, with a smile that could light up the darkest room. But life had other plans for him. Max was only 10 years old when he was diagnosed with a rare, terminal illness. What had started as a few odd symptoms, fatigue, occasional shortness of breath, quickly escalated into something far more devastating. By the time doctors had fully grasped the extent of his condition, there was little hope left. Max had only months to live. Still, he didn't let the diagnosis steal his spirit. Max continued to talk about space travel, and his hero, Elon Musk, every chance he got. His parents, John and Sarah, did everything they could to keep his dreams alive, taking him on trips to planetariums and sharing their own childhood memories of stargazing. But the reality was harsh. Max wasn't getting better, and time was running out. It was a Friday afternoon when the phone call came. The hospital had called, urgently requesting that Max's parents come in immediately. A sense of dread settled over them. The doctors said Max had only days left, but that wasn't the worst part. As they sat by his bedside, Max whispered his final wish, a wish that would change everything. "Mom, Dad." Max's voice was barely a whisper, but it was clear. "I want to meet him. I want to meet Elon Musk. Please." John and Sarah were stunned. Max had spoken about Elon countless times, but they never imagined he would ask for something so impossible. He wanted to visit a SpaceX launch, to see the rockets, and to meet the man who had inspired him to believe in the impossible. The doctors had prepared them for the worst, but nothing could have prepared them for this request. Could they make this happen? Could they get in touch with the one person who seemed unreachable? Max's eyes fluttered shut, the exhaustion of his illness taking its toll. But his parents knew they had to try. They had to make this dream come true, if only for him. As the evening sun set over their small town, Max's wish began to make waves beyond their home. His story spread like wildfire across social media. People began to share his final wish, rallying behind a dying boy's dream. Can we make it happen? Can we get to Elon Musk? Sarah thought as she held Max's fragile hand, her heart heavy with the weight of his request. John turned to her, his voice shaky. "We'll do whatever it takes." And that's when it hit them. This was no longer just a boy's dream. This was a mission. They had to make sure Max's final wish came true. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Max's journey was just beginning, and it would take more than hope. It would take a miracle. Max Thompson wasn't like other kids. Sure, he liked video games, sports, and all the usual childhood things, but his true passion had always been the stars. Since he could remember, Max would gaze at the night sky, his eyes wide with wonder. "The stars are like a giant puzzle," he'd tell his dad, John, while they both lay in the grass at the family's small house in the suburbs of Austin, Texas. "One day, I'll figure out how to solve it." John always humored his son, indulging in his curious questions about space and the universe. They would spend hours watching documentaries about space exploration or visiting local science museums, where Max would race from exhibit to exhibit, absorbing every fact about the planets, the stars, and the far-off galaxies. But there was something more to Max's fascination with space. It wasn't just about rockets and astronauts. It was about possibility. For Max, space represented an endless horizon, a place where anything was possible. He wasn't just dreaming of becoming an astronaut, he was dreaming of changing the world. He believed that the universe held the answers to questions mankind hadn't even thought to ask yet. His mother, Sarah, always supported him in his dreams, even when they felt impossible. But she knew it wasn't just the stars that Max loved. It was the people who made the impossible happen. And for Max, no one embodied that spirit more than Elon Musk. Max had learned about Elon Musk when he was just 7 years old. He'd watched a video of Musk talking about SpaceX and how he wanted to make life multiplanetary. Max's eyes lit up. "That's who I want to be," he declared. "I want to build rockets and take people to Mars. I want to do something that will make the world better." John had been skeptical at first, thinking it was just a phase. But Max's obsession with space and Elon Musk's work grew stronger as the years went on. He followed every SpaceX launch, studied every rocket design, and hung posters of Mars in his room. For Max, Elon Musk wasn't just a businessman. He was a symbol of what it meant to dream big and never give up, no matter the odds. Sarah often joked that Max's bedroom looked more like a mini SpaceX museum than a kid's room. The walls were plastered with blueprints, rocket diagrams, and pictures of Mars. Max even taught himself to read technical papers on space engineering, understanding them better than most high school students. But despite all his knowledge and passion, Max's body was beginning to betray him. The illness had started small, just a little extra fatigue, a bit of shortness of breath after running, but the doctors kept telling them it was nothing to worry about. Then the symptoms worsened. Max's body wasn't growing like it should. His muscles weakened, and his energy levels plummeted. After multiple tests, they were given the devastating diagnosis. Max had a rare, incurable disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The prognosis was grim. Most children with Duchenne didn't live past their teenage years, and Max's case was progressing rapidly. For Max, the reality of his condition hadn't hit him hard until he started noticing that he couldn't do the things he used to. The long walks with his dad turned into short trips to the park, and his nightly stargazing was increasingly done from the comfort of his bed. As time passed, his health deteriorated quickly, and it became evident that Max wouldn't live to see adulthood. But what no one could have predicted was that his relentless hope and determination would lead him to make a final, unimaginable request. Max's parents, John and Sarah, were at a loss for what to do. They watched their son's health decline every day, yet Max never stopped talking about space, never stopped talking about Elon Musk. Even in the face of his own mortality, he held on to that dream. A dream that, in the end, became his last wish. His parents tried everything they could to help him live out his dreams. They took him to space museums, arranged video calls with scientists and astronauts, but nothing could quite match the deep longing Max felt to meet the man who inspired him so much, Elon Musk. And then, as if the universe had aligned, Max made that wish, the one that would change everything. "I want to meet Elon Musk," he whispered, his voice barely audible. John and Sarah exchanged a look, their hearts heavy. They knew it would be a long shot, maybe even impossible, but they also knew that if there was any chance, any glimmer of hope, they had to try. This wish wasn't just for Max. It was a chance to make sure that, in some small way, Max's incredible spirit lived on. The story of Max's final wish began to spread. At first, it was just a post shared on social media by some of their friends. But then, the shares started to multiply, and soon, people from all over the world were talking about Max. Strangers were sending their thoughts, their prayers, and their support. And, in the midst of it all, the one name that kept coming up was Elon Musk. John and Sarah felt an incredible weight of responsibility. They had to find a way to get Max's story to the man who had inspired him more than anyone else. But the question was, how could they possibly reach him? It seemed impossible. But then again, Max had spent his entire life believing that nothing was impossible, and his final wish, the one that seemed so out of reach, might just be the catalyst for something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Let's make this wish happen together. The days felt like they were slipping away faster than anyone wanted to admit. Max's once bright eyes now looked clouded, his energy all but gone. But his dream was unwavering. Even as his body weakened, his spirit burned brighter than ever. Max's parents, John and Sarah, had barely slept since that fateful night in the hospital when Max whispered his final wish, to meet Elon Musk. They knew that time was running out, and with each passing day, they watched helplessly as Max's condition worsened. But they refused to let go of his dream. "How do we even begin?" Sarah asked one night, as they sat in their living room, Max asleep upstairs. John ran his hand through his hair, his thoughts swirling. "We'll start by telling everyone about him. The world needs to know Max's story. If we can't reach Elon directly, maybe someone else will." So that's exactly what they did. They posted Max's story online, sharing his journey, his love for space, and his admiration for Elon Musk. They wrote about the boy who had dreamed of reaching the stars, the boy who had studied rocket science in his bedroom, the boy who refused to let a terminal illness stop him from dreaming big. And most importantly, they shared his last wish, to meet Elon Musk. At first, there was little response. Max's story was tragic, yes, but they were just one family among millions. And yet, something started to shift. Max's story spread like wildfire across social media platforms. People from all over the world shared it. It wasn't just Max's parents now. They were joined by a global community, united in their desire to help make Max's wish come true. Within days, the hashtag #MaxMeetsMusk began trending. Strangers from different countries sent messages of support, encouraging Max's family to keep pushing forward. Some shared their own stories of hardship, others shared their hopes for Max's dream to be realized. It was a movement, a rallying cry for a little boy with big dreams. But was it enough? Despite the viral attention, there was still no word from Elon Musk or SpaceX. Max's parents, though heartened by the outpouring of support, knew that time was their greatest enemy. One evening, as Sarah sat by Max's bedside, she whispered to him, "We're doing everything we can, Max. Your story is out there. The world is listening." Max gave her a weak smile, his lips barely moving. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered. "I don't need much. I just want to see him, just once." In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. How could she possibly fulfill this wish when everything seemed so impossible? Elon Musk was one of the busiest people in the world, running SpaceX, Tesla, and countless other ventures. The odds of him personally responding to a random family's request seemed laughable. But for Max, they had no choice but to try. John, determined not to give up, had an idea. He spent hours researching Elon Musk's business partners, SpaceX engineers, and anyone who might have a direct line to Musk. He reached out to reporters who had covered SpaceX events, hoping they might help get Max's story in front of the right people. Then, one fateful afternoon, an email arrived. John's heart skipped a beat as he read the message. It was from a SpaceX representative. "We've heard Max's story, and we're moved by his incredible passion. Elon Musk himself has seen the viral campaign, and he'd like to meet Max personally." John could hardly believe it. It had worked. The impossible was becoming real. They quickly arranged for Max to visit the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. But would Max even make it? His condition was worsening by the day. Every moment counted. Max was elated when he heard the news. "I'm really going to meet him, aren't I?" he asked, his voice trembling with excitement. John and Sarah nodded, their hearts filled with a mixture of joy and sorrow. They were going to make his dream come true. The days leading up to the trip were a blur of excitement and anxiety. Max's doctors had given him the green light to travel, though they warned that they couldn't predict how long Max would hold up. The Thompson family packed their bags and headed to California, knowing that no matter what, they had to make this moment count. The flight to California was both thrilling and heartbreaking. Max sat quietly by the window, gazing out at the passing clouds as he whispered to his mom, "I can't believe this is happening. I'm actually going to meet Elon Musk." The words felt surreal, and yet they were on the verge of making history. When they arrived at SpaceX headquarters, Max could barely contain his excitement. His eyes darted around the campus, taking in the massive rockets, the state-of-the-art facilities, and the people working tirelessly to make space travel a reality. It was everything he had ever dreamed of. But there was one thing left. The man Max had idolized for so long. At last, the moment arrived. Elon Musk stepped into the room. Max's heart skipped a beat. There, in front of him, was the man who had inspired him to dream. The man who, against all odds, had made space exploration possible for the future. "Elon," Max whispered, his voice barely audible, "I'm Max. I've always wanted to meet you." Elon Musk looked at Max with a soft, sincere smile. "Max," he said warmly, "I've heard so much about you. You're one of the most incredible young people I've ever known." The room seemed to disappear around them as Elon knelt down to Max's level. "Your passion for space, your drive to make a difference, it's all incredible. You're an inspiration to all of us." Max, overwhelmed with emotion, could only nod. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now, here it was, more real than anything he could have imagined. Elon Musk's kindness and sincerity filled the room, and in that moment, Max knew he had accomplished something greater than just meeting a hero. He had made the impossible possible. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Max's dream is one step closer to reality. What's one impossible dream you've never given up on? Max had dreamed of this moment for so long, but as he stood face to face with Elon Musk, the moment felt more surreal than he could have imagined. His heart raced, and for a brief moment, he thought he might pass out from the overwhelming flood of emotions. But Elon Musk, the man Max had looked up to for years, wasn't just a distant figure anymore. He was standing right there, speaking to him as if they were old friends. Max barely knew what to say. His mind was filled with 1,000 thoughts, and his words felt inadequate for the moment. You really think I'm an inspiration? Max asked, his voice trembling. Elon smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Absolutely. You're doing something that many people don't, dreaming big and fighting for it. No matter the obstacles. That's something we can all learn from. Max's mom, Sarah, stood silently nearby, trying to hold back tears. She had never imagined this would happen. She had hoped, yes, but never truly believed that a boy from their small town could make it to the headquarters of SpaceX, let alone meet the man behind the rockets that had inspired his life. Thank you. Thank you so much, Max whispered, his eyes wide with awe. But Elon wasn't finished. You know, Max, he continued, space exploration is about more than just building rockets. It's about pushing the limits of what's possible. And you, my friend, are already doing that every single day. So, I want to do something for you. I want to show you something I've been working on. Max's eyes widened. What do you mean? I'm working on a project that I think you'd love, Elon said, his voice filled with excitement. It's a private project and it's still in the early stages, but I think it could change everything. It's a new kind of rocket, a more efficient, sustainable way to travel into space. It's not just about going to Mars anymore. It's about making space travel more accessible for everyone. And I want you to be a part of it. Max's jaw dropped. This was beyond anything he had imagined. You want me to be part of it? Elon nodded. You have the heart of an explorer. You've shown the world what it means to dream big, and I think you're the perfect person to be a part of this new mission. I want you to join me and the team at SpaceX as a special consultant, someone who can help shape the future of space exploration. For a moment, Max couldn't speak. The words didn't make sense. How could he, a young boy, dying from a terminal illness, be a part of something so monumental? He'd barely wrapped his head around the idea of meeting Elon Musk, and now he was being offered a role in one of the most important projects in history. But, I'm not going to be around much longer, Max whispered, his voice barely audible. Elon's expression softened. Max, I know time is precious, but your legacy doesn't have to end just because your body is growing weak. The ideas and passion you've shared with the world are bigger than any one person. You've already sparked something here, Max. The world knows your name, and your message has already reached further than you ever thought possible. Max could hardly process it. The weight of Elon's words hung in the air, heavy with both sadness and hope. Elon was offering him something that no one had ever imagined. He wasn't just giving Max a chance to be part of something important. He was giving him a chance to leave a lasting impact, something that would continue long after he was gone. As they walked through the SpaceX facilities together, Elon took Max and his parents on a tour. They passed massive rocket prototypes, gleaming with potential, and Elon spoke about his vision for the future of space travel. Max listened intently, his mind racing with ideas of his own. This was what he had always wanted, a way to contribute to something greater than himself. But as much as Max wanted to hold on to every moment of this dream, reality was beginning to creep in. The exhaustion of the trip was taking its toll on his frail body. Every step he took felt like a battle, but he pushed on, determined to absorb as much of this experience as he could. The tour ended in a room filled with blueprints for SpaceX's latest rocket design. Elon turned to Max with a grin. I want you to take a look at these designs. You've studied rockets for years, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Max sat down at the table, his eyes scanning the intricate details of the blueprints. He could see the effort, the precision, and the incredible vision that went into every line. His hands trembled as he traced the designs with his fingers, and for a moment, he felt like he was home. This is incredible, Max said quietly, his voice full of wonder. I think the fuel systems could be optimized here, and if you used a different kind of composite material in the shell, you could make it both lighter and more durable. Elon nodded, impressed. Exactly what I was thinking. You've got an eye for this, Max. The two spent hours discussing the designs, Max offering insights and suggestions that Elon genuinely valued. It felt like a dream come true. But with each passing hour, Max felt himself growing weaker. His body couldn't keep up with his mind, and the time for his visit was coming to an end. As the day wound down, Max and his family stood outside SpaceX's headquarters, overlooking the vast campus. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over everything. Elon, Max said quietly, thank you for everything. I never thought I'd get to be part of something this big. Elon smiled down at him. You already are, Max. You've made your mark on this world, and your story will inspire generations to come. Max's eyes were filled with tears, but there was something else there too, hope. He had lived a life filled with challenges, but in these final moments, he had found something greater than himself. And in that, he had truly touched the stars. Max's time at SpaceX was everything he had dreamed of and more. The team had treated him like family, listening to his every idea and soaking in the knowledge he offered. But, as his body began to weaken, Max knew he couldn't stay forever. The clock was ticking, and his journey was nearing its end. But something inside him told him that his impact would be felt long after he was gone. A few weeks after the visit, Max returned home, his health slowly deteriorating. But despite the mounting pain, he continued to smile, knowing that the world had heard his story and that something bigger than himself was unfolding. His room was now filled with memorabilia from SpaceX, signed photos of Elon Musk, schematics of rockets, and notes from the engineers who had worked with him during his brief time there. But it wasn't just the tangible items that meant the most to Max. It was the hope he had ignited in others. His story had inspired countless people around the world to pursue their dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. John and Sarah, still grappling with the reality that their son's time was running out, could see the change in Max. He was no longer the sickly boy who had struggled to find his place in the world. He was a symbol of perseverance, someone who had fought against every odd and still managed to accomplish something extraordinary. On a quiet afternoon, as Max rested in his room, John and Sarah sat by his side, holding his hands. They had spent countless hours talking about everything, from their memories of Max's childhood to their hopes for his future, a future they knew would be cut too short. Max, John said softly, his voice breaking, we're so proud of you. You've done more in your short life than most people will do in a lifetime. Max looked up at his father, his eyes bright despite the exhaustion on his face. I'm not done yet, Dad. Not yet. A week later, Max's condition worsened. He spent most of his time sleeping, but there were moments when he would sit up, his mind still sharp, thinking about the future he would never get to see. Still, he had a sense of peace. He had done what he set out to do. He had made his mark on the world, and in a way that no one could have predicted. One evening, as Max lay in bed, Sarah noticed a change in his breathing. Her heart skipped a beat. She reached for his hand, trying to hold on to every second. Max, honey, you're not alone. We're right here with you. Max's lips curled into a weak smile. I know, Mom. And I'm not afraid. I've done more than I ever thought possible. I'm just happy. Those were the last words Max ever spoke. Max passed away quietly that night, in the arms of his parents. The pain of losing him was unbearable, but his family took comfort in knowing that his story had inspired so many people. His legacy was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The news of Max's passing spread quickly. It wasn't just a local story, it was global. People from around the world sent condolences, sharing how Max had impacted their lives. Many had followed his journey, and they felt connected to him in a way that words could not describe. They mourned the loss of the boy who had dreamed so big. But amid the sorrow, there was something else, a wave of hope. Max's family had shared his dream of space exploration with the world, and now, more than ever, people were motivated to push the limits of what was possible. Inspired by Max's legacy, SpaceX announced that they would name a new program in his honor, the Max Thompson Project. The Max Thompson Project aimed to bring space exploration closer to the public, offering young students and aspiring scientists a chance to contribute to the future of space technology. Scholarships were established in Max's name, designed to support the next generation of dreamers who, like Max, believed that anything was possible if you dared to dream. Max's story became a touchstone for many. Students from across the globe sent their own space mission proposals to SpaceX, hoping to follow in Max's footsteps. They named their projects after him, and every year, the best ideas would receive funding and support, creating a ripple effect that would continue to change the world. But it wasn't just the students and engineers who felt inspired. Ordinary people, who had once thought their dreams were out of reach, now saw that anything was possible. Max's fight, his unwavering passion for space, reminded everyone that no dream was too big to chase. Max's family, still grieving, watched as his legacy took shape. John and Sarah knew that, despite the pain, they had been part of something extraordinary. Max had never just wanted to meet Elon Musk. He had wanted to change the world. And now, his story was doing just that. As the months passed, the Max Thompson Project flourished, bringing new breakthroughs in space exploration and inspiring countless others to follow their dreams. Max's name was known around the world, and his vision for the future became a guiding light for those who dared to dream. But it wasn't just the world that had changed. Max had left an indelible mark on his family as well. His parents, though forever missing him, carried on his spirit, telling his story to anyone who would listen. They knew that Max's dream had never truly ended. It had only just begun. In the quiet moments, when everything slowed down and the world seemed to be still, Sarah would often think about Max, the little boy who had never given up, who had pushed the limits of what was possible. She would sit by his grave, a place where she could feel close to him, and whisper, "You did it, Max. You really did it." And as she sat there, a breeze would pick up, and she would swear she could hear his voice, still alive in the world he had helped shape. "Thanks, Mom," the wind seemed to say. "I'm still here." Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Max's dream lives on, and so does his incredible legacy. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Max's story was now the subject of documentaries, books, and speeches. His name was everywhere. But the real magic was not in the headlines or the fame. It was in the lives he touched. Across the globe, people found themselves inspired by his unwavering will, his dreams of space, and his love for humanity. Max had become a symbol of perseverance and vision, one that would continue to ripple through generations. As the Max Thompson Project gained momentum, a new wave of young dreamers, eager to break through the barriers of what was possible, began to rise. Students in classrooms, in countries far and wide, looked up to Max's journey as a beacon of hope. They began to believe that even their most impossible dreams could become reality, just as Max's had. But for Elon Musk, the impact of Max's life was more personal. Despite being one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the world, Elon had never felt a connection like this before. Max had rekindled something deep inside him, an understanding that it wasn't just about creating rockets or achieving milestones. It was about inspiring others to look beyond the stars, to push the boundaries, and to reach for something greater than themselves. In the months following Max's passing, Elon became a vocal advocate for space exploration in schools. He worked alongside educators to incorporate Max's story into the curriculum, urging young students to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics (STEM). Elon had always known that innovation came from a wide range of minds, but now he was determined to give the next generation the opportunity to dream big, just as Max had. One day, while visiting a school in Florida, Elon stood before a group of middle school students and shared Max's story. "Max wasn't an astronaut," Elon said, his voice filled with emotion. "He didn't come from a family of scientists or engineers. He was just a boy with a dream. But that dream changed everything." The students listened intently, their eyes wide with fascination. They hadn't known Max's story until that moment, but now they felt a deep connection to him. Elon could see the spark in their eyes. They were ready to dream big, just as Max had. As the school year progressed, Max's legacy became a cornerstone of the STEM programs across the country. More scholarships were awarded in his name, and SpaceX partnered with universities to create new initiatives to bring diverse voices into the world of space exploration. Max's influence was undeniable, and the projects born from his memory were changing the course of the future. But the ripple effect wasn't just limited to young people. Adults, too, were inspired by Max's unyielding pursuit of a dream. Corporations and entrepreneurs across industries began to fund innovation and creativity, thinking bigger than ever before. Max had taught them a valuable lesson. It was never too late to chase a dream. One particular person whose life was deeply changed by Max's story was an engineer named Jordan, who had been working for a small tech startup before learning about Max. Jordan had always been fascinated by rockets and space technology, but had never found the courage to pursue it. He had grown up in a small town, much like Max, where dreams of space exploration felt out of reach. When Jordan first heard Max's story, he was moved to tears. He had been at a crossroads in his life, uncertain about whether he should take a risk and follow his passion. Max's story, however, ignited something inside him. He immediately quit his job and applied to work at SpaceX. It wasn't easy, but after months of interviews, learning, and determination, Jordan was offered a position as a junior engineer. He had made it, and it was all because of Max's courage to dream big. "It's crazy," Jordan said to his colleagues on his first day at SpaceX. "I was just a guy with a small dream, and now I'm here, helping build rockets. If Max can do it, then we all can." Jordan was just one of many who had been moved by Max's life. He wasn't alone in believing that the impossible was possible. Meanwhile, Max's parents, John and Sarah, worked tirelessly to keep their son's memory alive. They had become key advocates for the Max Thompson project, traveling around the country to speak about their son and the change he had brought about in the world. Despite the grief they carried every day, they took solace in knowing that Max's vision had sparked a movement that was making a real difference. One evening, after a particularly moving speech at a conference, Sarah was approached by a young woman named Clara, who had been in the audience. "I just wanted to say thank you," Clara said, her voice trembling. "I've always wanted to work in space exploration, but I never thought I could. I thought it was something for other people, not someone like me. But after hearing Max's story, well, it gave me the courage to apply to NASA's program. I'm going to start my journey, just like he did." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she hugged Clara tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Max would have been so proud, too. As time passed, Max's legacy continued to grow. The world had embraced his message, and the ripple effect of his life was becoming undeniable. More people were taking risks, chasing dreams, and pushing the boundaries of what was thought to be possible. Max had shown them all that with passion, dedication, and a refusal to give up, no dream was too far out of reach. Elon Musk, now more determined than ever, continued to work toward his ultimate goal of making space travel accessible for everyone. And as he stood in the SpaceX command center, looking at the latest rocket prototype, he smiled, knowing that Max had played a huge part in making this future a reality. Max may have been gone, but his dream, his story, and his legacy were still very much alive. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Max's legacy lives on in all of us. What dream are you going to chase today? Years passed, but the impact of Max's life continued to grow, rippling through the generations. His story became a cornerstone of inspiration, not just for those interested in space, but for anyone with a dream that seemed impossible. The Max Thompson project had expanded beyond even Elon Musk's expectations. More than a legacy, it had become a movement, uniting dreamers, scientists, and innovators from every corner of the globe. But for Sarah and John, the pain of losing Max never truly went away. They carried him in their hearts, speaking about him with pride, but always feeling the emptiness that only a parent who has lost a child can understand. They had made it their life's mission to see Max's vision flourish, but each achievement was bittersweet. Every scholarship, every program, and every success that came from Max's legacy was a reminder of what they had lost. Yet, They continued. For Max. For his dream. In a quiet moment one evening, Sarah sat alone in Max's room, now transformed into a museum of his dreams. The photos, the SpaceX memorabilia, and the countless letters and drawings from children around the world were all reminders of the legacy he had built. She ran her fingers over the signed rocket schematic Elon Musk had given them, smiling softly through her tears. She could almost feel Max's presence beside her, as if he were still there, still watching over her, still dreaming. John joined her after a while, sitting down beside her. They had often spent these quiet moments together, reflecting on their son's extraordinary journey. I wonder if he ever knew how much he changed things, Sarah said softly. I don't think he ever realized how big his dream really was. I think he knew, John replied, his voice heavy with emotion. He might not have known how many lives he would touch, but he always believed in the power of one person's dream to change the world. And that's what he did. They sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts, but together in their grief and their pride. Across the world, young engineers and astronauts were pushing boundaries every day, propelled by Max's legacy. And among them, a familiar name began to rise to the forefront of space exploration. Jordan, the young engineer who had been inspired by Max's story, was now leading one of SpaceX's most ambitious projects, a mission to Mars. It had been a long road since he first decided to follow his passion, but now, as he stood in front of his team, he felt ready to take on the biggest challenge of his life. This mission, Jordan said during a briefing, isn't just about going to Mars. It's about showing the world that if Max could dream big, so can we. This is for him, and for every person out there who's ever been told their dreams are impossible. The team nodded, their eyes filled with determination. They had come a long way since the early days of Max's story. Jordan, once a boy uncertain about his future, had now become a leader, carrying Max's dream further into the cosmos. Meanwhile, in schools around the world, students were working on their own projects, inspired by Max's journey. They were creating new technologies, designing innovative solutions to old problems, and dreaming of a future where the stars were within their reach. Teachers incorporated Max's story into their lessons, using it as an example of how persistence and imagination could lead to incredible breakthroughs. In a small classroom in a rural town, a young girl named Emily stared up at a poster of Max Thompson on the wall. Emily had always been fascinated by space, but like many of her peers, she had never truly believed it was something she could achieve. Her family wasn't wealthy, and she didn't have the resources that others had. But Max's story changed everything. I'm going to build the first rover on Mars, she said to herself one day, determination burning in her eyes. Just like Max would have wanted. Emily began sketching designs for her rover in the margins of her notebook, using everything she had learned in science class. Every failure she encountered only pushed her further. She applied for every scholarship, worked on every project, and stayed up late learning everything she could about engineering. Emily was on a path that Max had unknowingly paved for her. Back at SpaceX, Elon Musk reflected on how far they had come. What had started as a dream between him and Max had grown into a global movement, and now Mars was within reach. SpaceX had completed its first successful unmanned mission to Mars, and the preparations for the manned mission were well underway. Max's influence was everywhere. In the engineers, in the students, in the very design of their rockets. Max had achieved what so many believed was impossible. He had brought people together, across industries, countries, and backgrounds, fueled by a shared belief that they, too, could reach for the stars. But as Elon prepared for the next stage of the Mars mission, he was faced with an unexpected challenge. The final step was not just about technology or resources. It was about ensuring that humanity would continue to dream, to strive, and to push beyond the limitations of Earth. Maybe Max wasn't just right about space, Elon thought. Maybe he was right about everything. The future isn't just about rockets. It's about people daring to dream. With that thought in mind, Elon made a decision. SpaceX would fund a global initiative, one that wasn't just about space. It would be about helping anyone, anywhere, who had the courage to pursue a dream. It would be about the dreamers, the inventors, the thinkers, and the doers, just like Max. This new initiative would become known as the Max Thompson Dreamers Fund. It would provide grants, scholarships, and mentorship to young innovators all over the world, giving them the support they needed to turn their ideas into reality, whether those ideas were about space, the environment, or technology. It was Max's dream, now shared by the world. Max had started with a simple wish, a wish to meet Elon Musk, to talk about space. But in the end, his wish had grown into something much greater, a worldwide movement, a legacy of dreamers who would forever be inspired by the boy who never gave up. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Max's story continues to inspire, and his legacy lives on in all of us. What's the first step you'll take toward your biggest dream today? As the years passed, the Max Thompson Dreamers Fund grew into a global initiative that touched the lives of millions. The fund had transformed into an enduring testament to Max's vision, offering opportunities to anyone, anywhere, who had the courage to chase their dreams. And as the world moved forward, the impact of Max's life continued to multiply in ways that no one could have predicted. SpaceX's Mars mission was a resounding success. The first humans to land on the red planet were greeted with cameras flashing, national pride, and excitement for the future. As Elon Musk stepped onto the surface of Mars, he couldn't help but think back to that young boy from a small town who had inspired this journey. Max Thompson had been part of a dream that stretched across not just decades, but centuries. It wasn't just about space exploration. It was about humanity's potential to reach the stars, and Max had helped to ignite that spark. It was during this mission that Max's legacy reached its most profound height. The astronauts on the mission carried with them a small, metal plaque. Engraved on it were Max's name and a message from Elon Musk. To the dreamers, the pioneers, and the brave, may you always reach for the stars. The plaque was placed on Mars as a symbolic tribute to Max's dream. The astronauts took a moment of silence, thinking of Max and everything he had done. It wasn't just a small gesture. It was a promise that no matter how far humanity reached, they would never forget the dreamer who believed that anything was possible. Back on Earth, Max's parents, John and Sarah, sat in their living room, watching the footage of the astronauts on Mars. It was an emotional moment for them, but also one of pride. Their son, the boy who never stopped dreaming, had changed the world in ways they had never imagined. And even though he was no longer with them, they felt his presence everywhere. In the stars, in the stories of young dreamers, and in the work that continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. Max always said that the sky wasn't the limit, Sarah whispered to John, her eyes fixed on the screen. And now, we're sending people to Mars. He was right. John nodded, his voice thick with emotion. He was always right. The Max Thompson Dreamers Fund was now a force that fueled the innovation and creativity of future generations. It supported young inventors, engineers, and dreamers, regardless of their background or where they came from. The stories of those who had benefited from the fund were awe-inspiring. A young girl from a small village in Africa who developed a new type of solar power technology, a group of teenagers in India who built a low-cost water filtration system, and a high school student in Brazil who designed a space rover for NASA. These were just a few examples of how Max's dream continued to shape the future. One of the most exciting developments came from a young man named Lucas, who had been a recipient of the Max Thompson Dreamers Fund. Lucas had always been fascinated by robotics, and after receiving a scholarship, he spent years designing and perfecting a humanoid robot that could assist astronauts on long-term space missions. His work was groundbreaking, and it was poised to be a critical component of future missions to Mars and beyond. "I wouldn't be here without Max," Lucas said during a live demonstration of his robot. "I was just a kid with a dream, and his story made me believe that my dream was worth pursuing. I know now that no dream is too big, and it's all because of Max." Elon Musk was present at the demonstration, and as he watched Lucas's robot perform its tasks, he couldn't help but think of how far they had come. What had started as a simple, personal connection between him and a young boy had turned into a worldwide revolution in innovation, education, and space exploration. As Elon addressed the crowd after the demonstration, he reflected on everything that had transpired. Max's dream wasn't just about space. It was about inspiring a whole new generation of thinkers, doers, and creators. What we're seeing today, what Lucas and so many others are achieving, is a direct result of that dream. And it's just the beginning. The world had changed, and it had changed because of one boy's wish. Max had started with a dream of reaching the stars, but what he had truly done was ignite a movement that stretched far beyond space exploration. He had shown humanity that the impossible was within reach, that dreams were worth pursuing, no matter how small or big they seemed. And so, the ripple effect of Max's life continued, expanding outward into every corner of the world, from schools to tech companies to space missions. Every new dreamer, every new innovator, and every new creator carried a piece of Max with them as they reached for the sky and beyond. Max Thompson's story would never be forgotten, and as the generations of dreamers grew, so too did the belief that no matter where you started, or how impossible it seemed, the horizon was always within reach. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Max's dream lives on through all of us. What's your biggest dream? The stars are waiting.